So imagine you're walking into Johnny Carino's one day to have their lovely, delicious chicken parmesan, which to be fair is about the only good thing they serve over there. Only kidding, I really like the restaurant. You sit back and you get your first meal of chicken parmesan, and just pretend that that chicken parmesan is the original Independence Day. You get your chicken parmesan, you sit back and you start consuming it, you start eating it. It's one of the greatest meals you've ever eaten in your entire life. The spaghetti is just the whole sci-fi action stuff, while the melted parmesan cheese and tomato sauce are the good character development with charismatic leads like Will Smith and Bill Pullman and Brent Spiner. And then you eat the chicken part and you indulge it, and the chicken is the whole fun of the entire thing. Some of the action scenes are incredible, some of the charismatic leads make you care about them, to imagine that the stakes are higher, and it has one of the most famous alien disaster scenes of all time. And then you're finished with that chicken parmesan. It was so good you'll order it again, and then you ask the waitress for another one. And then 20 minutes later, and by 20 minutes later I mean 20 years later, and before you can even finish the thought of wondering where it is, here comes the waitress again with the silver platter. But the platter's empty. Confused, you start to ask what's going on when out of nowhere, she plops the empty tray on the counter, she squats, and before long you got a beautiful silver platter with a fresh steaming turd coiled like a fecal cobra in the center of the table. She turns to you and she says, "Well, here's the meal you asked for. It's everything you wanted." And then you're like, "Wait a minute, that's not what I wanted. I wanted chicken parmesan. All you did was pinch a turd on my table. This is bullcrap. Why don't you shut up and stop complaining? You wanted another one and here it freaking is. Either pay us or get the hell out." That's when the other customers start shouting at you, "Yeah, you retard, pay out! That meal looks delicious. Why are you freaking complaining?" That's what it's like to watch Independence Day Resurgence. This so-called franchise has gone from one of the most successful sci-fi films I've seen in the late 90s to an abortion I want permanently wiped from my memory. I wanted to like this film. Not because it was just a silly disaster flick that you can just turn your brain off while having fun with it. I mean, heck, there are a ton of disaster films that I usually turn my brain off with, like San Andreas with Dwayne Johnson. But seeing this movie, it seems that Roland Emmerich has become to alienate and insult myself and the entire audience who went out to see this movie, who actually liked the first Independence Day. And I'm not saying this because I didn't turn my brain off. I hated it because it's just a bad movie. How bad is it? Well, where do I even start? So after the War of 1996, 20 years later, in 2016, the United States of America's technology has been greatly improved. Everyone's got new vehicles, everyone's got a new moon base, everyone has sweet plasma rifles, and it's looking like everything should be great. That is until the aliens from the original Independence Day, with an even bigger ship, decides to destroy the entire world. And it's up to our uncharismatic characters we don't care about, along with charismatic characters from the original who have nothing to do in this movie except to give out expository dialogue about the aliens coming to Earth to stop the aliens from destroying Earth once again. Alright guys, I want to ask you a question. What were some of the things you really liked about the first Independence Day, aside from the action and such? It was the charismatic characters. Sure, there was some really corny and dumb fun you can see in Independence Day, but it had charisma that carried it. It had Jeff Goldblum's nerdiness and quirkiness, and that made it really hilarious. Bill Pullman is the greatest president to give the most greatest speech in Independence Day. And then you had Will Smith, one of the most charismatic actors working today. And that movie alone made him a huge movie star. What do we get besides characters we don't care about? Well, the old characters are back. Bill Pullman is back, Jeff Goldblum is back, Vivica A. Fox is back. Unfortunately, Will Smith is not in this movie. Glad he didn't have to waste his time with this monstrosity, am I right? And then he had Judd Hirsch and Brent Spiner who are back as well. Certainly those characters can liven up this entire film. No, not really. Sure, these characters are in the movie that you liked from the original, but they do absolutely nothing with them. Because what we get from the original performances are really phoned in acting, with some really expository data dump, pretty much discussing about when the aliens are coming and how they're going to attack us or what their weak spot is. Like for example, Jeff Goldblum, one of the biggest bright spots of Independence Day, is not the real nerdy, quirky guy that we really liked in the first Independence Day. And Bill Pullman, you know, the awesome president from the original, gives an alien exposition data dump that basically tells when the aliens are coming, while acting through this typical piss-poor dialogue. Does he give an inspiring speech? Yes. but it's not where it needs to be. It's in like the middle of the second act rather than the beginning of the third act. Like everyone needs to fight for their lives where they really think that this is gonna be their final stand against the aliens. And you don't get that here. And speaking of characters you don't care about from this movie, when people from the original die in this movie, it is just to give characters motivations that A, I didn't care about, and B, are just bad actors. Instead of getting Will Smith like you could have, you just decided to get two actors who are trying to copy the exact same role of Will Smith. And none of them you care about at all. Sure, you get Liam Hemsworth in this movie. Sure, he's one of the most charismatic actors in the entire movie, but the screenplay never gives you enough to identify with him or have him be relatable. Jesse T. Usher plays Will Smith's son who was in the first Independence Day, and I didn't really care about him because one, that dude is freaking awful, or number two, they didn't give us any dimensions with that character because he's so boring, bland, and uninteresting. Same thing with Micah Monroe as Bill Pullman's daughter from the first movie. She was just an uninteresting character, and yes, I did not care about her in this entire film. None of the characters I really wanted to like I end up caring about because either the screenplay just decided to give him some really piss-poor dialogue so that way it can justify the character development in this film, which it doesn't have at all, or you give him some really awkward, unfunny humor in this movie. I mean, seriously, some of the humor in this movie, Michael Bay would look at it and just go, and I thought my humor was offensive. And what also made Independence Day really engaging? The action sequences. This movie has some of the most unengaging action sequences I've seen this year. Mainly because there were characters that I really wanted to die and I just didn't care about. And the dogfights in this movie are just not exciting. It's not interesting. Oh, and what makes this movie worse is the terrible sequel bait to Independence Day 3. It's the type of horrible sequel bait ending that you just look at and go, no, no. No, 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 no. Yep, it's pretty like that. So in the end of the day, Independence Day Resurgence, I really wanted to like this film. I really did. But by the end of the movie, you just have uncharismatic characters that you really don't care about or just outright hate. Some of the characters from the original are given nothing to do and just not interesting at all. Some of the dialogue is piss poor and some of the acting is really terrible and phoned in. Some of the humor is awkward and unfunny. The fight scenes are unengaging, and that sequel-baited ending just made things so much worse. And the fact that I wanted to like this movie made me feel depressed and devastated and just sad. But at the end of the day, I'm sorry. Independence Day Resurgence gets a 0 out of 5. Hey Jeff Goldblum, I have an idea to bring your career back. Be in a Jurassic World sequel. Please, we need you. Just don't make this third movie. For the love of God. Alright guys, that is my review on Independence Day Resurgence. Comment below, let me know what you thought about the movie. Find me on Facebook, Google+, or private message me on YouTube if you feel like it. My name is Luke Nukem, and today we celebrate our Independence Day from this franchise.